So the big election is coming up in, 3 weeks, August 23rd. As a matter of fact, voting is underway right now for the primary, and we've got some big races. Probably the most interesting in terms of it's a close race, I think, is the race to replace Jay Trumbull, who has been the state representative for the past 8 years. And so he is termed out. He's now running for the state Senate. That's another story. But to replace him, we have Brian Clowdus, an outsider, versus Griff Griffitts, the ultimate insider, the current county commissioner. This is such an interesting race on a lot of levels. Number one, that seat has always been an establishment stronghold. The Panhandle is an important seat out of the 120 state representative seats in the state legislature in Florida. There are 120 House seats. And we've had Jay Trumbull, powerful. He's been powerful. He's been on the Appropriations Committee, the chairman. We've had before that Jimmy Patronis, who's now the CFO. And before that, we had Alan Bantz, who was the Speaker of the House with Jeb Bush. This is a big seat. And the establishment counts on it to continue to get its crony favors. And Griff Griffitts is their guy. But the problem is they consider Brian Clowdus to be an outsider. Brian Clowdus is showing to be a real conservative. He's worked harder than any candidate I've ever seen locally. He has knocked on nearly 17,000 doors, as opposed to the establishment candidates. They sort of get placed there. They certainly get all the funding from the usual suspects, and things usually work their way. Only this time it's a tight race, I think. So, but the establishment candidates usually get the endorsements they want, but the endorsements are for them. They get furious when anybody else even asks for an endorsement. For example, the Bay County GOP considered about 2 weeks ago, not even that long ago, about a week ago, considered endorsing Brian Clowdus. And that just absolutely sent Griff Griffitts into a rage. Grifter Griffitts. And part of the reason that he's earned that nickname is he became a home builder after he became a county commissioner. And he votes on things that benefit his home builder, his home construction company. And so I think it's just the perfect name, don't you? Grifter Griffitts. He was the chairman, as a matter of fact, of the Bay County Commission. And I'll tell you the most incredible story about when he was the chairman right after Hurricane Michael and the missing nearly $9 million that nobody seems too curious about except the lawsuit, the class action lawsuit, in which a forensic study was done and showed that there is, I think it's more than 9 million, but it was 8.7 million last I saw. I'll show you the news story that talks about the IOU right after this.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome.
Hand caught in the cookie jar? Sometimes bad habits continue even into adulthood. I'm El Saline, 850-215-0628. Let me help you.
Okay, so I'm going to show you a really incredible News Herald article from right after the hurricane. And Griff Griffitts was the chairman of the Bay County Commission. I'm also going to share with you what the Beacon of Bay County, if you're not following that page, you ought to be. The Beacon of Bay County, what Jody posted, and that's going to be really where we get most of the information about Griff Griffitts getting enraged. Although I did talk to the lady who was the target of his ire, and he said, does she know who she's messing with? I'll take her down. Now, nobody knows quite what I'll take her down means, but if you don't vote for Griff, or if you try to get an endorsement elsewhere, he'll take you down, man. You'll never work again in this town. Yeah, powerful dude. There's so much I could say, but let's get to the news story. So in September, September, October, so almost a year after Hurricane Michael, the News Herald story, Bay County to keep millage rate unchanged next year. Now, here's part of that article. Griffitts, the chairman at the time, added that the county also expects to borrow from itself to get additional money. The Retail Water Fund and the Builder Services Fund have a lot of money in those accounts right now. We will place an IOU in those accounts if we need to. County staff have applied for several federal grant programs too to get additional money, Griff said. We'll place an IOU in those accounts. Now, the account I want to specifically look at is the Builder Services Fund, where he says we'll place an IOU in those accounts if we need to. That's illegal. That's against state statute. The Builder Services Fund is a fund that the county has that is paid for by contractors. Contractors have to pay fees. That money can only be so much, right? And they can't just let it keep ballooning and then take money out of that and put it in a general fund and leave an IOU. By the way, if IOU sounds familiar, that was part of the joke when I was talking about Mayor Mark Sheldon's nonprofit. See, Sheldon is very, very close. Let's see here. Sheldon is very close with Griff. I thought I had that. Oh, yeah, here we go. So if you look, it says Florida Elite Travel Softball Dash. Clearly it's 10, the number 10 with a U, right? But I kept calling it IOU. And that has clearly ticked off some people. And they want to deflect the story away from Mark Sheldon's involvement and Mark Sheldon's conflicts of interest. But what am I, an amateur? It ain't happening. So the hashtag IOU is because I knew this story was coming and I was going to share it with you. We'll place an IOU in those accounts if needed. All right. So that is illegal. You can't do it. But according to a forensic audit that was done during the class action lawsuit, where these contractors have paid these fees and are supposed to be refunded if the builder services, if the county doesn't use that money for the things it is allowed to use it for by statute. Things like training, things like new equipment, but it cannot just be taken out of there and an IOU be left. Can't do it. Now, who's supposed to hold him accountable? Well, the local sheriff's office could. The state attorney could, Larry Bassford, but there are a lot of conflicts of interest within the state attorney's office with regard to Griff Griffitts, and even within the sheriff's office, quite frankly. There are family relations. And as a matter of fact, Griff Griffitts got the sheriff's endorsement. Even though there's money missing, nobody's asking about it. $9 million. But the public trust units are too busy chasing down thousands of dollars in an absolute mess they have made of the Lynn Haven case, particularly against former Mayor Margo Anderson and developer James Finch. That's still developing too, big time. And we're waiting for some rulings, and it is scheduled to take place November 28th, which is a crazy day, I think, a crazy time to think that the trial is going to happen, but it's scheduled. And the judge wants it to happen on that date. But meanwhile, there's millions and millions and millions and millions and millions missing in the county commission. And he's enraged that the Bay GOP nearly endorsed Brian Clowdus. So let's get to the story and find out from the Beacon of Bay County what this is all about. All right. It was posted by Jody Moore, the administrator of the Beacon of Bay County. Yeah, that's a good view. Okay, so on 7/25, it was posted on July 26th, but on July 25th, here's what it says. I attended the Republican Executive Committee meeting last night, Monday on July 25th, and a few very interesting things happened. The Republican Executive Committee, the REC, was voting on whether to endorse certain candidates in the primary, which is August 23rd. After some discussion, it was agreed that the REC would endorse unopposed Republican candidates in the primary. No controversy there. An REC member, Liz, had previously and legally, according to the rules and everything else, asked the REC to endorse Brian Clowdus for Florida House. It was entirely proper to do so, according to Debbie Wood, the REC chairwoman of the Bay County Republican Party, Florida GOP. Mitzi Prater, the Bay County Republican State Committee woman, seemed to disagree with that. But Ms. Wood was clear that it was an appropriate request. The Griffitts campaign could have done the same, but did not. There was much discussion from the membership about the request. At one point, an REC member stood and made this statement to Chairwoman Wood, quote, I understand you got a phone call from Commissioner Griffitts concerning a volunteer, Liz, who came up with the idea to see if the group wanted to endorse Brian Clowdus. Oh, there we go. I should have just kept reading. Who requested the REC members to vote on an endorsement for Brian Clowdus. The person who was asking the question said, I was told that Griffitts said Liz does not know what he can do to her and he can take her down. Did he say how he'll take her down? Physically? Financially? Worse? As Mitzi Prater called out, this was just hearsay. Ms. Wood replied, no, he did not. This is not hearsay. Ms. Wood acknowledged in her reply to the REC member that Griff Griffitts, a sitting Bay County commissioner and candidate for the Florida House Seat 6 representative, threatened to take someone down. And a woman at that. Oh, by the way, the local establishment love to try to intimidate women. I think that you probably know that. I guess chivalry is dead. Apparently, Mr. Griffitts was infuriated that Liz, an REC member and friend of Brian Clowdus, had made an entirely appropriate request for the REC to endorse Clowdus, which the Griffitts campaign could have done, but apparently didn't see the need to do. So the Griffitts campaign didn't even ask the Bay GOP. Or perhaps the Griffitts campaign would not have liked the result of a vote on the endorsement. All right, there's more to this story. And I'm going to share the rest of this story and give you a few more comments. Could you imagine the inverse? Could you imagine if, I don't know, when the sheriff's office or whoever has endorsed Griff Griffitts, could you imagine if Brian Clowdus called that person? Like, for example, Panama City Commissioner Jenna Halligus has endorsed Griff Griffitts. Could you imagine if Brian Clowdus called her up and said, you don't know who you're dealing with here. When I get elected, you're not getting anything else. And furthermore, I'll take you down. I mean, could you just imagine? Can anybody imagine Brian Clowdus doing that? But we could all imagine, because it happens, Griff Griffitts doing that. You'll never work again in this town, pal. I know that feeling. All right, I got a lot more on this story from the Beacon of Bay County, and I want to look at your comments as well. And I want you to consider what kind of person, because this is a close race, I believe, what kind of person do we want to send to the state capitol? I know what kind of person I want to send. I also know what kind of person I'd like to see sitting up on the school board.
If you're fed up with parents being kept out of the loop in our schools, political nonsense crowding out basic education, and Bay District Schools, with its $500 million budget, spending too much money on contractors and consultants instead of on the students themselves, then vote for Francis Keyes Gordon for school board on or before August 23rd. Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777.
All right, let's get back to the article here. So this again here's where it's from. If you haven't already followed this page, the Beacon of Bay County, doing great work, reporting, commenting, editorializing, just providing information about Bay County. And look at that, they already have 2,500 members. It's a great place for information. All right, so back to that. So I read you this first part here. Now we're going to the next part. Jody says, I don't know about any of you, whether you endorse Griffitts or not. This is shocking. The fact that he would call and be that enraged that the Bay GOP, I mean, can Brian Clowdus get one endorsement locally? I mean, just one. They have the good old boys do this. They hate when anybody else is making a living, when anybody else gets a contract, and they make threats. Nobody still knows what Griff meant by that. I'll take her down. It doesn't sound good, right? Threatening people, and by the way, I'll point this out. It's not an actionable threat, and you need to know that. He did not say, if you do this, then I will go hurt her. That is actionable. The police could, I doubt they would, but they around here, but they could do something about that. This was not an actionable threat, but this is clearly crossing the line, and it certainly sounds threatening. So I want to make that legal distinction. Okay. Threatening people because they do things you don't like, not okay. I absolutely believe this statement was made because I know Ms. Wood, the Republican Executive Committee chairwoman, and she would not lie about this. She has been more than fair to the Griffitts campaign. There was another witness there who heard this as well, even though they don't think she has been. I think anyway. Furthermore, there were witnesses to this phone call. One approached me after the meeting and told me they heard this conversation as well when it actually happened, and they heard the threat too. Ms. Wood had an absolute duty to notify Liz of a threat made against her. If I were in her shoes, I would have actually called the police, says Jody. Is this what we want in local government in Bay County? You all decide. You have to stand up and say things like this are wrong, because they are. I find this whole thing utterly disgusting. We have to stand up to people who would attempt to bully others. Otherwise, what kind of world is this? Are all you other elected leaders who have endorsed Griffitts okay with this too? And the answer to that is yes, they are. Yes, they are. Even Jenna Halligus is okay with this statement. Sheriff Tommy Ford is okay with this statement. And whoever else has endorsed him. I should have had the thing up here. They're all okay with the statement. They're okay because they're complicit in their silence. Well, it's hearsay. I don't know if it really happened. There's always an excuse. Always an excuse. Whether it's illegal postcards. For example, the illegal postcards sent against my campaign by Arthur Cullen's people, McConnell, but we've taken care of McConnell, Todd Neves and others. The sheriff's office knew all about that. Acknowledged it was illegal, but chose not to do anything about it. Discretion, You're complicit. You're complicit. in election interference, when you see now what Griff did is not a crime, even if it happened exactly the way that the Beacon of Bay County explained it. It's not a crime. There was not an if-then actionable threat. However, on moral grounds, on ethical grounds, just political decency, it's way out of line. And if I had endorsed Griff, I would have called him and asked him if he said this. And if he did, I would have made a statement. I'm removing my endorsement because of this. That's unacceptable. And if you're endorsing him, you're endorsing this behavior. And it tells us a little bit about you. Am I right or wrong? Let me see what you all are saying. All right, let's see. Geneva says, I pity the fool who dare try to intimidate me. Let's see here. Jason says he got mad because he's scared. I think there's truth to that. If Griff was way ahead in the polls, and they run polls through Neves Media. Okay, so Neves Media does the advertising for the establishment candidates and runs polls for the candidates. They're very accurate. Todd Neves is a smart guy, runs accurate polls, but interferes with elections. Neves Media is partners with WMBB. WMBB, they are official partners with the establishment's PR team that puts together their signs, and they run like 60. Find out, somebody look it up. How much has the Griff Griffitts campaign paid to Neves Media to date? How much money have they run through there? I'll tell you what they usually do in a county commission race anyway. They normally get about 90 grand, but I know Griff has much more than that. But for a county commission race, which would be a smaller race, they would get about 90 grand from the local, usual suspects. Then they would spend about 60 grand through Neves Media, partner of WMBB. That's how crooked this place is. And they make the signs and the commercials and videos and all kinds of stuff that they do. 60 grand is how much it costs. So let's see. I think it's a very close race. And I do think that that's part of the reason Griff is concerned. All right, let's see. So, yeah, the Republican Party of Florida chairman, Jeff, I think it's Jeff Groot. Is it Joe Gruters or Jeff? Anyway, Gruters. And he is, you talk about, if you look up in the dictionary rhino, Republican in name only, I think you're going to see Gruters' face in it. He's awful. And he looks like the Grinch. He does. He looks like the Grinch. Let's see here. Brian Clowdus, Florida House is doing right when he triggers these idiots. Yeah. Let's see. However, we should all be asking the campaign supporters. You mad, bro? There's a story behind that too. We get a lot of trolls, and a couple of years ago, they were all using. They get talking points, right? And they were all using that. For whatever reason, the IOU thing really, which is interesting. Remember, because Griff said he would put an IOU and take out money from the Builder Services Fund, and now there's $9 million missing, and nobody knows where the hell it is, and nobody cares. Still gets an endorsement from Sheriff Ford. Maybe they looked into it and found out that there's no wrongdoing. There's no money, but there's no wrongdoing. I don't know. But it's pretty damn weird. You got to admit, it's pretty damn weird. Keith, just wondering when the sheriff and state attorney will get off their butts and do the job they're elected to do. The day will come. Carol says Griff uses non-English speaking workers to build his signs next to Bay GOP where he rented the space. I've heard that. Denise, and I hope you're doing okay, by the way, Denise, praying for good health and happiness. Complicit. If you have signed off on an endorsement for Griff Griffitts. And then he turns around and threatens, and Ari's in uses threatening language. Again, not actionable. Does she know who I am? I'll take her down. Take her down. What? By the way, Griff Griffitts is not even a member of the Bay GOP. So, but he does promise to build back better. Griff does. He promises that they'll build back better. There's his campaign manager, Arthur Cullen, standing next to somebody there. And Griff, as I told you, is a home builder now. Yeah. He's a home builder after he became a county commissioner. All right, let's get to the rest of the story from the Beacon of Bay County right after this.
It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan could make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at pcairrepair.com.
While getting to know the residents of Bay County, I observed a pattern of complaints about corrupt career politicians, people born into politics, buying their way into politics, and creating self-serving policy for themselves, their families, and their friends. It's time to shake things up and get an America First patriot in office, one who is for the people and of the people.
So, just so you know, let's get rid of them. Just so you know, Brian Clowdus bought a political ad from me, and I've been, even before he did that, I've been encouraging people to vote for Brian Clowdus over Griff Griffitts for a long time. So the last person that bought a political ad from me on this little Facebook show, and the last person who I encouraged you to vote for, who was that? That was Mary Coburn. Mary Coburn, who beat incumbent Jeff McConnell 60-40. So, full disclosure, I mean, obviously, right? I mean, I'm running an ad for him. He bought an ad. Some people, they love to say things about that, like trying to make a living doing something like this is a bad thing. All right, I got to see but I wanted you to know that. Let's see what else you have. It sure does. It is a template they use, and they are easy to spot. Let's see. So I wouldn't be able to get that. Geneva, he's really got a lot going on. And I don't know exactly what the deal is between Governor DeSantis and the money that he approves for these projects, some of which are fraudulent. But, he's got 67 counties in Florida. He can't know everything. And plus, we got a country to save. So I wish I could do that. Let's see what other comments. So Denise talks about Regina Piazza for state Senate. She's running against Jay Trumbull for the state Senate seat, and her campaign reached out to me and asked if she could be on the show, and we're working out a date to have her on the show. Just so you know, it'll be probably the end of this week or early next week when Regina Piazza will be on the show. Let's finish, though. Let's get back to this and finish the story from the Beacon of Bay County. There we go. That's a better one. So, again, Jody's asking about, what kind of people we want. And I'm at the end of the second paragraph there. All you other elected leaders who have endorsed Griffitts, are you okay with this too? And the answer is they are okay with it. Complicit in their silence, they're okay with it. Jody goes on, in the end, the vote was taken regarding the Brian Clowdus endorsement. It failed. The Bay GOP didn't get enough votes to do it, but just barely. The vote was 21 yes, 10 no, and 4 abstained. People are actually scared because you got people like Griff Griffitts threatening to take people down. You'll never work again in this town. Because they don't think anybody should get an endorsement from anybody but them. If your business endorses, listen, I know stories about this, and I'm going to save them out of respect for the businesses. But if your business endorses Brian Clowdus, you are going to get phone calls. You're going to have code enforcement visit you. These people are scumbags. They are crooked. They are corrupt. But at some point, when they don't just have 3 or 4 people, a smattering of people and businesses standing up to them, but when 500 businesses stand up to them, they're gone. Maybe even when 20. But more people have to have the courage. Otherwise, we lose the damn country, one county and one state at a time. Am I right or wrong? All right, so the endorsement required a 2/3 vote of the quorum, and that was not reached. However, clearly, even if an endorsement cannot be made officially by the Republican Executive Committee of Bay County, it seems clear to me, says Jody, that the majority of the Republican Executive Committee supports Clowdus and his candidacy. A couple of people who abstained from voting on principle stated they were voting for Clowdus or already had done so. By the way, one member of the Republican Executive Committee is this man, is Arthur Cullen. His campaign manager, let's see if I have here we go, is, there's Arthur Cullen. Arthur Cullen likes to have fake accounts. He got caught a couple of years ago, though. His favorite one was Alex Cantone. Arthur Cullen would actually have conversations with himself. Arthur Cullen and Alex Cantone would have conversations on Facebook. That's how dishonest this political operative and campaign and dumpster diver is. But Griff Griffitts chose to hire him for his campaign. Arthur Cullen is a member of the Republican Executive Committee, the Bay GOP. Griff is not. But Griff, as we'll continue to read here, had more to say. All right. Another item of interest was that Francis Gordon, also who I'm endorsing, and also who bought a political ad on this show, running for school board seat 2, declined to accept an endorsement from the REC, stating that the race for the school board itself is no party affiliation, even though she is a Republican and an REC member. She stated that she would love to have the REC endorsement, but did not feel it was right under the circumstances. Look, I've already played the ad. Okay? But if you want to know a woman of principle, a woman who's against the woke Bolshevik, a Republican, a conservative woman who has so much integrity that she declined an endorsement from the Bay GOP, from the Republican Executive Committee on principle. I'm playing her ad again. I hope you vote for this. I hope you vote for Francis Gordon for school board. If you're fed up with parents being kept out of the loop in our schools, political nonsense crowding out basic education, and Bay District Schools, with its $500 million budget, spending too much money on contractors and consultants instead of on the students themselves, then vote for Francis Keys Gordon for school board on or before August 23rd. You've got some real choices this year, this time around. All right, let's finish this. Wow, that was just incredible. I did not know that. If Mr. Griffitts wishes to refute the statements made last night at the REC meeting, or if he wishes to present his point of view, he or anyone from his campaign is invited to do so here. Did anybody do that, by the way, Jody? Will you answer that if you're watching, or anybody with the Beacon of Bay County? Did anybody formally deny that Griff Griffitts said he'll take her down to the lady with the Republican Executive Committee who brought up the idea of possibly endorsing Brian Clowdus? I'm curious if you guys got an official response from the campaign. However, we will start from the premise that this statement was made. I 100% believe it, that it was, or I would never make this post, says Jody. I want the truth told. That is what the Beacon stands for, this Facebook page. I actually think Mr. Griffitts owes Ms. Wood and Liz an apology. No matter how angry or upset or hurt a person gets, this type of behavior is wrong all day and every time. especially from a person who is already an elected official. Griff Griffitts holds the public trust. And this is how he comports himself in a campaign. People can say things in anger that they don't mean, but one, I wouldn't vote for someone who can't keep an even temper. And two, I expect more from someone who is already an elected official. Amen. I hope the next month of the Florida House Representative Seat 6 race can be run without any further ugliness. There's 3 weeks now. And no more nasty anonymous surveys. Yeah, those surveys are this is another tactic of theirs that Arthur Cullen, his fingerprints are all over it, or whatever name he uses. And Todd Neves, who owns Neves Media, is business partners with WMBB. These people have their fingerprints all over this. Anything ugly, any ugly polling that's done, or ugly surveys that are done, or anything like that, you can bet it's these guys. Scumbags, man. I mean, let me keep reading. Let's simply see these two candidates present their vision of leadership to the people like gentlemen, and let the people decide. Furthermore, if a citizen or business wishes to endorse either candidate, they should be allowed to do so without reprisal from either campaign or that campaign's supporters. I have heard some rumors about this. Intimidation is not okay and it needs to stop. Welcome to Politics Bay County, folks. It doesn't have to be this way unless such tactic works. Feel free to share. And feel free to share this show, please, so people know about this. Don't you want enough people to know about this story? This story will not be told by local news because local news outlets are public-private partners with local politicians. But I'll tell you a couple of stories, not hearsay because it happened to me. So in 2018, I ran for Panama City Beach City Council. And there are 2 instances, and out of respect for the people, I'm not going to tell you their names, but there are 2 instances where I got a max donation. All right. I raised about $30,000, which was, I asked everybody, and that was a lot of money for that seat. Jeff McConnell got $47,500 put into his account by the usual suspects, and God knows how much under the table to buy things like, illegal postcards. But here's what happened. There are two people, and one of them is probably watching the show and isn't always happy with me. The other one I'm certain is not watching the show. 2 people made max donations to my campaign, which was $1,000. Okay, $1,000 to my campaign. These 2 people are prominent. One is prominent, one is well known, businessmen. And as soon as it hit and it showed that they made the donation, each of these men got a phone call. One was from Arthur Cullen. I don't know who the other person was, but it was somebody who I was told was very powerful and influential. Arthur is not very powerful and influential. He's just a conduit to the powerful and influential. Called these people and were told, if you don't make an equal $1,000 donation to Jeff McConnell, we're going to stop doing business with you. There's going to be a price to pay. Quote, we're supporting McConnell. That means you need to support McConnell unless you want reprisal. They were told that. They were told they would have serious problems with their businesses if they didn't immediately write a max check to my opponent. Others who put up signs in their yards, in their front of their businesses, got coordinated phone calls to their corporate offices and were questioned and harassed in all kinds of ways. Some people are still getting code enforcement harassment for ever even supporting my efforts. So this stuff is real and this stuff happens. And I mean, you deal with it. I mean, if you're going to run, you deal with it. And when enough people like here, like the Beacon of Bay County, stand up and tell the truth? Do you know how great it is to look on Facebook and see that I'm not the only one trying to get the truth out? So if you're not following that page, I hope you will. But yeah, those stories are true. Those stories are real. Let's see here. Yeah, Go Team Gordon is right. Nicole remembers those postcards. Here's Liz. This is the lady that, hi Liz, this is the lady that Griff Griffitts said it about. Liz is with the Republican Executive Committee and said, hey, why don't we just put it up for vote? And if enough people in the group want to endorse Brian Clowdus, well, that was too much for Griff to handle. Yeah, that was too much. That's the lady right there who Griff was enraged at. How about that? You know, I don't even know if I'm more mad at I'm not even really more mad at Griff than I am the people who endorse him and don't say anything about it. Sorry. I'm just trying to take the comment, clear the comments. But I mean, I am probably, because, you know, it's kind of like this. If I brought to you a scorpion, right, and I said, hey, look, I have this scorpion and it's a friendly little scorpion. It's my pet, right? It's a domesticated scorpion. And I said, here, look, pet it. Would you pet my friend scorpion? Would you? No. Right? No, it's a scorpion. What do scorpions do? They sting, right? So, Bernie, I don't care how much that scorpion likes you, right? I don't believe you. I'm not touching the scorpion. Why? Because scorpions sting. Cronies use their office and create businesses like home building businesses, make votes, make phone calls, threaten people. That's what they do. And for you to endorse that when you know these things, and then something like this happens and you don't make a statement, you don't pull it off, your name off, I'm probably more mad at you because I expect it of them. I don't expect the cronies to not crony. But I do expect more from some of you, Sheriff. I do expect more from you. I do expect more from you, State Attorney Larry Bassford. A lot more. And the rest of you who endorse this kind of stuff, when you know that it's wrong to endorse him. All right. Yeah, I'm definitely more mad at you than I am the scorpion. It's a threat when you have a sitting yeah. Wow. No wonder I love her. Exactly what I was thinking at exactly the time I was thinking it. All right. I think I've just sufficiently upset myself enough. Yeah, I'm definitely more disappointed and upset with people who endorse that and don't come out and say it's wrong. Shouldn't do it. You know what I notice around here? I noticed that when Molly, for example, the low water resident, gets attacked, and those people sit up there and vote to give the guy who said horrible things about her in an email because she was concerned about her neighborhood, called her all kinds of names. You know the story, don't you? I don't want to rehash it. And I'm the only person, let alone the only man, who looks at those other men, says you should be ashamed of yourselves. How do you let this happen around here? And then these guys go to church and wear their religion on their sleeves, pretend to be good people, and you condone that. And you circle the wagons and you allow good people to get hurt. And you all know the games that are played around here. If I know it, you know it, you're in it. I'll never understand it. You can take everything I have, but you're not going to take that from me. When I look in the mirror, I'll know I stood up for people who deserved to be stood up for. I got run over. I got my teeth kicked in. I looked around and nobody else was standing there with me, either to save, well, very few people, either to save the Gulf from the coming pollution or to save good people from being intimidated and threatened and talked about like that. I think I do get the feeling that the tide's changing. Mary Coburn showed us that. I do get the feeling that more people are fed up with this kind of stuff. But I don't get the feeling that anybody's looking for the $9 million or so that Griff Griffitts said in this article on September 18, 2019. In that article, he said that they'll take money from the Builder Services Fund, place an IOU in those accounts. That's illegal. Now there's $9 million missing, according to a forensic audit. And the sheriff and the state attorney endorse Griff Griffitts. That's a problem, even if there are family ties. And I'm not even going to go there. But it makes me sick to my stomach. And I'm so disappointed in some of you. Oh my God. All right, I've got to wrap it up. Usually I'm a lot more professional. I want to remind you about Americans for Prosperity and how you can volunteer. They do such good work.
Americans for Prosperity is the largest grassroots organization advancing policies that help people improve their lives. AFP Florida seeks to end corporate welfare, expand energy options, and reform education and healthcare by giving people more choices. Sign up today and volunteer at americansforprosperity.org.
Hey, if you want to support my efforts, here's how you can do it. It's called crowdfunding. You can become a patron. I survive because many of you are patrons for as little as $5 a month. It's like giving a tip. It's anonymous, so there's no retribution against you. It really is anonymous. It's easy, and you can quit at any time. Patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. That's how you can support the show. Also, of course, as always, I want to thank the Unknown Patriot for supporting my efforts and the rest of you as well. And I hope that we get somebody that would never threaten to take somebody down just because they sought an endorsement. Brian Clowdus has a really good chance, and I think they know it. All right, I'm out of here. I need to go do some therapy, do some Lamaze, something, anything to calm down after this show, and I'll see you soon.